Okay, throughout this session, I'd like everybody to get their notepads and a pen, which you can't see because it keeps disappearing because of my background. But grab a notepad, grab a pen, and doodle throughout. I would like to have you all at the end of the session believing that you can draw. In the chat, can you just let me know, how do you feel about drawing? Are you confident with it? Do you hate it? Um, I'd like to convince you, if you have a negative opinion on it, that it's not scary and that you should feel the fear and draw anyway. I am not an artist, can I just say? I only started drawing with my classes maybe in about 2016, 2017. Um, and since then, I've developed my skills. I see it as a visual vocabulary. So much like learning a language, we can learn it over time and practice. And okay, so this session is called From Chaos to Clarity, Tips for Effective and Engaging Whiteboards. So often our whiteboards, and I think it's okay for our whiteboards to be chaotic and messy because sometimes classes are chaotic and messy, but we would like them to be as clear as possible and as streamlined as possible. So hopefully I will share some ways of doing this. I will be using Canva Whiteboard, which is an online whiteboard tool. There are other alternatives such as Miro and Mural that you might want to look at using. I'm also using a digital pen. You can use your finger if you want to. I will show you other ways that you can do this if you don't have a touchscreen laptop and pen as I go through as well. One of the things I'd like to say actually about this session is usually my sessions are very colourful. And my sketch notes, if you're familiar with them, are very colourful. My visual tools for learners, which are kind of graphic organizers with a visual thinking, visual metaphor twist, are very colourful. But this session's about whiteboards, and whiteboards are generally black and white, or white and black, uh, or depending on how many colours you can get with from your stationery cupboard, you can add more. And we'll talk a bit about that as we go through. But why add doodles and graphic facilitation techniques through your whiteboards? Firstly, it makes them more accessible. So it provides some very simple support for learners. One image can have a big impact on meaning. It's lots of fun. It's creative. Um, Adding little doodles can bring the class to life. They don't need to be art. You'll see that these are, as you look at my doodles, this one is a triangle, this one is a squiggle, this one is a rectangle. You will start to see shapes, lines. If you can draw the alphabet and you can draw shapes, then you can draw. It's joyful and welcoming. And I think as teachers, we want our students to feel like they are welcomed into the class. Maybe we want them to feel like they're getting a big hug when they come into class. We want them to feel welcome. In class, it can be a bit of a plan B as well. So sometimes you might go into your classroom and think, computer's not working. What's happening? But if you've got drawings up your sleeve, if you can doodle, I will show you some activities that you can do minimal preparation at any time in class whenever you want to. So you've always got a toolkit of tools for facilitation ideas. It inspires creativity. Um, Creativity is what is a critical thinking skill, a 21st century skill. It's very highly sought after. If you draw out, there are studies that show that drawing out your future and future visioning can help you think about what you want in life and think about their plans, help them plan where they want to be, how they're going to get there, and get creative about their ideas. It also helps students to understand. Um, So you can draw out complex concepts such as grammar, for example, or vocabulary, and that can help students to process information and think. In fact, Sunny Brown, who is a very big doodler, sketch noter, she's got a book called The Doodle Revolution, and she says that doodles are making marks to help people think. So they are very, very helpful. Okay, so some of the benefits. This is one of the ways I like to illustrate the benefits through visuals. So we have a left whiteboard and we've got a right whiteboard. Can you say in the chat which whiteboard would you prefer to learn from in your class? If you were to learn another language, which whiteboard would you want your teacher to use? Yep, right, exactly. Which one is the most accessible whiteboard, the left one or the right one? Yes, somebody's just written, no need to ask. You're very correct. I'd like you to just take a look at this one for a moment and picture a world of English language teaching where there are no images. You go into class and there's no pictures. You open your notebooks and there's no pictures, just words. You open your course books, just words. You download a PDF to use in class and it's just words. That's not going to be very motivating. It's not going to be very understandable. It's not going to be very inspiring. It's also not going to replicate real life because so much of what we do is visual. If you look around the screen at the moment, there's so many little icons here. Like, for example, this T for text, the upload icon here on the left. If you look on Zoom or think about Zoom, you've got the speech bubble for chat, etc. There's so much visual literacy every single day. And if you look closely at these words, these pictures that I've used, they're illustrating sounds, so oo and ch for low-level literacy learners. And they all involve just simple shapes. So an O, a rectangle, another rectangle, and then an L shape for a clock. You could just have just the clock itself, like that. The cheese is basically a rectangle with a triangle. Sorry, sometimes Canva does that weird thing with the, I'm not sure how to stop it. If anyone knows how to stop it, please tell me. The foot is very bizarre, but it gets the point across that yes, it is indeed a foot. So it doesn't need to be beautiful. And I think actually having imperfect and messy drawings makes students much more likely and willing to be imperfect and messy in their own notebooks and mess is creative. And on the whiteboard, nobody wants to see their teacher creating the Sistine Chapel of Leonardo da Vinci perfection. They just want to be taught English in a fun way. So here's a way that you can make your whiteboard accessible on day one. And let's make it very welcoming. So you can draw, remember when you were a kid and you would draw a bird? So it's like two N shapes together, another N shape, and then some little lines. And you can maybe add a little smile in the middle. I often found that my students would ask me again and again and again and again, teacher, what room, teacher, what class, etc. So if it's all there on the whiteboard with a picture beside it, then they know exactly what uh, all the information. So add the time, for example, 9 to 12, add the room number, a little rectangle with a circle, and then add your email address. And you can add like a little @ there to make sure they know. Oh yeah, somebody's just put you can add funny pictures in Canva under elements. You are so correct, which is another reason why I love using Canva. So if you go to elements here, you can search for anything you want. So for example, time, and then you'll see clocks, you've got pictures, videos, lots of cool things on Canva you can do. So you don't just need to draw it. And that's another way of getting around if you don't have a doodleable drawing tablet screen, a drawing screen. So you can add it with your own icons using the Elements tab. This is a whiteboard that I created in class on a day where I went into class and the computer wasn't working. So we were practicing sounds. So we've got bridge, DGE. We've got the silent K in here. We were kind of reviewing a whole lot of different sounds. We were looking at sh, we were looking at oo, and these. So I got students to think about what was in their kitchen, and then I drew them out. This washing machine here is basically just a rectangle and a couple of circles and a very, very small shrunken t-shirt comedy size in it that demonstrates that it's a washing machine. Um, and then you can ask lots of extension tasks with that, get them to ask and answer questions. For example, is there a washing machine in your kitchen? Um, what is inside your fridge? Do you have an oven? Those kind of questions. Question, answer, make sentences, write about their kitchen, describe their kitchen, draw their dream kitchen, or create on Canva, for example, a dream kitchen and get them to talk about it, or find a picture online, get them to talk about it. Um, Another whiteboard that I'd like to show you that I've used is it's kind of like a sketch note of a whiteboard. So sketchnoting is a form of visual recording or visual note taking, and it's basically using simple pictures with very short text. So it's kind of like a hand-drawn infographic in a way. So in my classroom at the college, I was very lucky to have an entire wall where I could put the messy parts of my classroom work. But I also had this whiteboard at the side, which kind of became a wall, like it was kind of more of a permanent feature. And randomly, other teachers didn't really use this as much as I did. So that whiteboard kind of became mine. And then my kind of doodles stayed on the wall and helped other classes that came in the afternoon or the morning. But yeah, so we used these with, so for example, got countries here, a little flag, and then they can see all the different capitals here. It means they can take a picture of it or they can draw it themselves, for example. This little world map here is simply a circle and some little splodges. There is some research to show that drawings only need to look, oh, I can never remember, 30, 40, or 50% similar. I think it's actually as low as 30% for us to be able to understand what they are. Um, so this little, for example, this little graphic with the world map, circle and some little splodges, and that's all you need to show to demonstrate something. Same with this street, for example. The street, couple of lines, and then some little other lines around it. So yeah, keep it simple, and then students can take pictures. Students can create their own if you want them to. Okay, so in class, there are various tick options. If you don't have a drawing tablet and a pen, you can use this visualizer. And visualizers, you can get them quite cheaply. They basically take a video stream of a piece of paper or a picture or a magazine or your course book, for example, and then it connects to a computer and then maybe to a whiteboard as well. And then you can use it in class to show what's on your paper. It's actually really good for correcting, for working through corrections together or highlighting bits of a text together. But yeah, you can draw on it as well. The flip chart, the mighty flip chart, love the flip chart. Uh, One of the joys of a flip chart is not only being able to use it like a whiteboard, but also being able to use giant pieces of paper to create posters or to have classroom activities. So I'll show you some classroom activities using flip charts later. You've got Canva Whiteboard as well. I like Canva because you can edit videos, you can make reels, you can I do my invoicing with Canva. You can create PDF documents, PowerPoint presentations, all sorts of things. But you can also use oops, Miro. Oh, sometimes it does that. I don't know why. It's got some. Okay, Canva. The alternatives are Miro, excuse the writing, and Mural. Um, but they are more, I think Miro and Mural are a bit more expensive and they don't seem to have the same functionality. It's doing exactly the same thing. Um, and you've got obviously your whiteboard as well. Wonderful. And someone in the last session brought up blackboards. Of course, use blackboards. You can get really creative and use all sorts of things. Someone in the last session also said that they laminated bits of paper to create their own mini whiteboards. You can also get little smart boards, which are mini whiteboards, and lots of activities to use with all of those. Plus a piece of paper and a notepad. Also wonderful. Okay, to make your whiteboard snazzier, you can have things called what we call banners. In the graphic facilitation world or the sketchnoting world, these are called banners. Um, so the top tip is to write around the word first. So for example, where is it? For example, I'm going to make a bit more space. So write the word first. If you want to share any of your doodles at any point, please tag Macmillan Education and Emily Bryson ELT on socials. I would absolutely love to see what you are creating in your own notebooks right now. So nice little rectangle, another rectangle around it, and then you can connect it at the sides. The alternative is to turn it into like, you could make it like a mirror. It's going to be quite good for reflective activities or for picture frames. Yeah, mirror or picture frame. The simple one is just to add little dots in the corner to make it look like a kind of plaque. And the slightly trickier one is to turn it into like a kind of ribbon. So a couple of lines, another couple of lines. You can have a triangle here. You could also have it just flat if you want. And then a couple of like a V shape at the top or a triangle, depending on the angle that you want to go for. So rectangle, and that just makes things a little bit snazzier. It gets students into taking notes as well and makes their own notebooks more fun. You'll find that students get really into making their notebooks look really interesting and stand out. And I always find that when I create sketch notes and notes that look pretty, I'm much more inclined to look at them again. So if you want your students to review their notes or the notes that you create, then I would recommend sketchnoting them. So I'd like to share the paper carousel idea before I show you how to make this snazzy. So paper carousel is basically an activity where you get big pieces of paper, get students into groups, and then you create, so it's, for example, group A has the plan of talking about food vocabulary, for example, and they need to make a list of all the food vocabulary they can think of. B has to make a list of all the, I don't know, colours they can think of. Group D or Group C have to think about animals, for example, and then they pass they once they've had their ideas, they pass the piece of paper to the next group who adds their own ideas. Maybe they correct some spelling mistakes. Maybe they ask some questions. You could start it with a question, like a research question as well. And Group A adds all the information they know about that research question and then passes it to Group B, who then adds more information. So lots of different activities that you can do with this paper carousel idea. It's a great way of preparing students for like presentations, helping them review grammar, helping them review vocabulary. But you can do it with blank pieces of paper, or you can make it immediately more appealing by adding snazzy little layouts such as these. And if you want a quick way of doing it, you can go to elements in Canva and, for example, look for a Flipchart and then add this to it and then print out if you want a super quick way of doing it. But I like to draw it and then you don't need to bother printing anything. Um, and to draw it, you just start with a rectangle. And then in the top corners, you can add a couple of drawing pins, just with a couple of lines, and then a couple of circles at the top. And if you want to, you can color the circles in. And then you've got something that's immediately more engaging than just a blank sheet of paper. You can also add more lines and then turn it into some sticky tape. You could make that sticky tape jaggy along the edges if you want to. And then you can color it in because some sticky tape is very cool and colored and some is not. Some is transparent. So yeah, up to you. But I feel like it makes everything, and you can add obviously a banner at the top, like for example, get them to think about, and then for example, food. Oh, I'm writing too fast. The problem with you do kind of do need to slow down a little bit. Um, and the other one is to make it look like it's kind of coming away from the page and that it's got this nice little corner. So to do that, you can start with a rectangle at the top with a couple of dots at the side, and then just give it a bit of a flick at the bottom. Go along, and then here you can just give it a little flick at the bottom as well and make it curved. Okay. And then, yeah, then you've got some nice flip charts that are very engaging for your learners. And this is what we call container. We like to call graphic facilitators call these like a container activity. And another great container activity is the light bulb that we talked about earlier. So a container is basically just an icon drawn really big as a thinking space so that students can put their ideas into that thinking space and have time to maybe discuss it and explore it in more depth. So the light bulb is very versatile because you can use it for ideas, for example. You can get students to add their ideas using post-it notes. So you've got this U shape, and then you've got an O, and then you've got a Z, and you've got an M. You can have the M with wiggles, or you can have just an M as it is, or you can have lots of little filaments. It's up to you. But yeah, you can get students to come out and add ideas with post-it notes. If you're working in Canva, you can look for sticky notes and then have students add their ideas using sticky notes. Because yeah, with Canva Whiteboard, you can share it a lot like you can share like a Google Doc. Um, so you can have all the students interacting at the same time, all in one document, which is really good fun and very collaborative. You can give them all different sections as well, so that they're all working on maybe a different activity at the same time. Okay, yeah, so container activities. Here is another container activity. So yeah, containers, big icons or icons drawn big or created big to give you thinking spaces. Um, and in this is an activity that you can do that's very minimal preparation. If you know how to draw these icons, then you can do it at any time in class. So if you've got a computer failure, um, then it's perfect for that. But it's also a good way of getting students out of their chairs and collaborating and talking together. So this is how I got students to think about and share ideas on how they learned English. So the homework, for example, is a rectangle with some little C shapes, backward C shapes. The book is a rectangle with some couple of little lines. The video is multiple N shapes and some little circles. And a rectangle, a little line. The laptop is a rectangle, a couple of lines out the way, and then just some really quick, oops. It's going to say quick crisscrosses, but it doesn't always work like that. Too quick, not too quick. I don't know why Canva wants to show me that. I want to do it over here. There we go. A couple of little crisscrosses. Um, so yeah, students, you can get students to come out and add their ideas using post-its or give them all a whiteboard marker. I find that my students love writing their own ideas on a whiteboard marker. You could get them to copy it to their notebooks and add their ideas. But it's a great way of getting them to share um, what how they learn English. Um, and actually, what intrigued me was that my students used a lot of videos. Um, that surprised me. I thought they would be using more kind of speaking outside of class, etc., and um, websites, etc. Um, you can use vocabulary. What do you call them? They're kind of like a vocabulary graphic organizer, I suppose, where you can get them into the habit of not just writing a word with no translation whatsoever, and then they go home and they have no idea what the word means. But you could get them to add pictures, add it like a frame, like I showed you, or a circle for meaning, a word in a rectangle, and then a sentence with it in context. Um, then we've got lettering. And because I taught a lot of literacy learners, we did a lot of handwriting in class because I found that students who um, were quite slow with their handwriting took longer to take notes. So they were a bit of a disadvantage with the learners who'd maybe learned, were very quick with their handwriting. And yeah, so dotted third paper is great. So for example, this is a tall letter. I'll just zoom in on that. So you've got your letters that come to the top here. You've got your smaller letters and you've got your letters with tails. So for example, capital E is a tall letter. M is a small letter. I is a small letter. L is a tall letter. Hey. The mysteries of Canva Whiteboard. I don't know why it does that. Uh, ah, I don't know what's happening with the pen here. Sorry. Seems to be whenever I draw a dot, doesn't like dots. L, Y. So that's your down letter, for example. So I don't spend too long on lettering because I think in the real world, in the classroom with a whiteboard, you want it to be fast. But If you're creating something like a flip chart that you're going to use many times, or a poster, or maybe you want to teach your students some fun ways to create letters on their posters, for example, then you could use these. So the first easy way is just to do capital letters or any letter and just add little serifs on the corners. So like just add, make them a bit longer at the end. You could get them to add little dots. So a dot here, a dot there. You can add the dots wherever they want, really. They can add, I haven't added one in this bit, but you could. Uh, you can do bubble writing, which makes things a bit more fun. So maybe if students are doing a task, you can create something nice on the whiteboard for their next task, for example, if you have time to do that. If not, stick with just regular, clear whiteboard writing that is intelligible. I think the most important part of whiteboard writing is to make sure that students can understand it and read it easily. So make it big enough and make it clear enough and make it fit with these kind of rules of the correct height, for example. Okay, I think that brings us. Oh yeah, if you want some extra inspiration, I would recommend this hashtag ELT whiteboard, which was very popular a few years ago, but I think it's kind of lost its momentum a little bit. So it would be great to reinvigorate the momentum. So if you can start it again and share your ideas from ELT whiteboards, that would be lovely. This is Dan Barber's Present Perfect. So it is a bridge from the past into the present. Oh, that's not the present, that's the future. It's a bridge into the present. So past, right. I'm just going to leave that one because we're running out of time. You know what I mean. So, and then here, Andrew Parfit has this lovely hashtag ELT whiteboard for the difference between p and b. And the only difference is that they've got these little aspirated lines. So he's just drawn the side of a face and some lovely little aspirated lines to show students that you can feel the sound and b you don't. So thank you so much for coming. If you want to see more doodling videos and more colourful visual templates, etc., then you can go to @Emily Bryson ELT or emilybrysonelt.com.